Hey guys, just finished watching Marvel's Runaways, Season 2, Episode 3, Double Zeros. What an interesting episode. So this episode was kind of was kind of fun. A little bit more going on. Not too much in terms of kind of moving on the whole storyline. We're still not anywhere with kind of what's going on with the Gaborums underneath the ground in the construction site type thing. The only thing we move on with that is that Wilder gives it to Jeffrey Wilder gives it to Darius and stuff, but then he kind of dies in the end of the episode. So it's kind of like there's no that's kind of like undone right away at the end of the episode. So we really don't move on with kind of figuring out who Jonah is, what's going on with that. We don't really move on with any of the story too much. We do have little things here and there that happen, but nothing too much into it. So we start off this episode, we see that Molly kind of, she last episode she snuck out, right? And we pick up with her kind of just walking the streets, and she's kind of looking to kind of do some superheroing and stuff. And I kind of like the way she's doing this, kind of an interesting way. She has no experience, doesn't know what she's doing. But yet she doesn't really fail at it either, everyone's telling her not to do it because it's too dangerous, but there's no failing at it just yet. So I think that's really interesting to see kind of where things go with that, because so far she tries to save someone twice and she does it, but she doesn't really fail at it. There's really, there's no backlash to it. There's no, there's nothing really negative about it in her like that happens to her about it, other than, Kurt getting mad at her, Nico getting mad at her, and other than that, there's no real backlash to it. There's no real negativity to it. So side effects of her, going out there, the pimp doesn't go looking for her or anything like that, and it's just like she's just lucky she attacked someone that was so terrified of her that he didn't want to attack her, because what if he had, gotten a bunch of his gangs? Who knows how rich this pimp is, maybe he has a bunch of guys and he sends like 10 guys after them with guns, and she's like, no, we got this, you're not bulletproof, right? But I think it's really an interesting idea playing with this, and since this is technically supposed to be in the MCU, someone like this could definitely be terrified of her just because she has super strength. He doesn't know what other powers they have, and in a world where, I don't know if the world knows about Thanos technically, because unless there's footage from him showing up on in Wakanda, if that footage somehow got out there, but he only appeared in the woods, right? So I don't see anyone who's left, and this probably takes place before the snap, I assumed, and so it probably, Thanos has not appeared on Earth yet. So I think it's interesting that, I guess Thanos has not, no one recognized Thanos. And I think that's kind of interesting playing with that, with all the stuff going on. Let's say people have heard about different things, about, obviously Iron Man and Thor and all that, Hulk and all that stuff. So it's not too far to kind of see someone, oh, she has a little bit of powers, let me be terrified of that, right? I think that is kind of makes sense for the situation. I think that could be an interesting thing to kind of play with as time goes on. So we see that the Wilder's family is going after to get Alex, because at the end of the last episode, we saw Darius kind of call up Joseph Wilder and say, hey, I got Alex, pretty much, come and get him, right? So he sells pretty much Alex for the construction lot. We see Nico, at the start of the episode, Nico makes everyone trained. That goes really well until she blocks an attack from from the Fistigons and stuff, and then the second one she gets hurt, and then that's when they find out throughout this episode she's learning to use her staff a bit more, that she can't use the same spell twice. Everything is done, you use it once and you cannot move on. You can't reuse the same spell, and I think that's really interesting playing with that, to seeing as to kind of where things go and different ways to kind of run things out. Like eventually, she tries to start the car and she tries to use spark and it doesn't work. She uses hot wire and it works, and then now she's going to, there's only a finite amount of synonyms to starting to hotwire a car, and eventually, and does it work with other language? Did she learn French, Spanish, any other different language? Does it work with all those different languages? If she just pulls up her phone and says what she wants to do, she wants to hotwire the car, and she runs out of English words to say with the staff, can she then go to different languages and just Google translate those and then be like saying them in a different language and then set it up? Or is the staff only set to one language? I could see it being a few languages, but I don't see it being all languages. Maybe the certain languages that are set up to it, maybe not sure where the staff of one comes from. But if it's, if it comes from way down in her family, maybe there's some, Mandarin or something like that. That could be an interesting version to be played, right? Or that could be something interesting to play with. To see what type of different dialects of languages she'd be able to play with that and how they would talk, right? Or maybe the language that we see Janet Stein kind of reading from the book. Maybe that language. Is there any connection there to that? Is there any connection to from the origin of the staff of one to Jonah? That could be something interesting playing with that. I doubt it, because I'm not mistaken, the staff of one is one of the mystical artifacts. Just like as they talk about in Doctor Strange. Just like the Eye of Agamotto. Well, the Eye of Agamotto is not a mystical artifact. It's the stone inside that's mystical, right? The Eye of Agamotto is just kind of a case, a necklace to put it in, right? So I think that could be interesting to playing with that. So we see that Darius obviously sets up Alex, and sets him up to give him to his father, and that's when Alex makes a call, or uses speed dial on his flip phone to kind of call Nico. And she kind of instantly recognizes, because he straight up asks, where's mom, where are we going? And then she gathers everyone to go save him and stuff. That was really cool seeing that. We see Janet Stein, ends up calling, or like Jonah calls Janet Stein to kind of to try and get a hold of Victor Stein, and he's not being cooperative inside of the Mind Palace thing. I forget, that's it's a wrong show. Yeah, it was from Sherlock, but inside of his mind and stuff, and inside of his imagination, he's kind of like, hey, you're just holding me here for no reason, right? So she goes inside there alone. She talks to him, tries to get some information, and she does. She learns to unlock the book via Victor Stein and stuff. And I think that's really going to be interesting to see is kind of where things are going to go with that. They don't really tease as to what it means, because she unlocks the book and there's just kind of a hologram of some, looks like a solar system, but none of the planets look not our solar system. So I think that's really gonna be interesting to see, is to kind of, it's unclear as to which one is where Jonah's from. And I think that's really gonna be interesting to see as to where things kind of continue on from here. I think it could be quite interesting to see that. And like I said, with Jonah in the last episode, with Jonah and Carolina, I think it's really going to be interesting to see as to where things go with their relationship. She's obviously she's obviously related to him, right? He's probably her father, but is she really related to Leslie Dean? Could Leslie Dean just have been, someone who kind of, I kind of think a surrogate, type thing for Jonah? Maybe Carolina has nothing in common, DNA wise with Leslie. She's not human, and she's completely, completely whatever Jonah is, right? Alien, right? I think that could be interesting with that. And Jonah just kind of used her as a vessel to grow his child, right? Like a surrogate. I think that could be interesting. Playing with that. Or is there has to be some sort of a difference. So I think to make it interesting, then it's just like she's just the same as him, she's just as powerful as him, or because she's part human, if they go that route, does it make her kind of, I'm not sure what about her in the comic books or anything like that. And it seems like they're going really accurate with the comic books so far, at least from what I can tell. I haven't read the comic books, but doing my research and stuff online and looking up, histories of the Runaways and stuff, seems pretty accurate so far, except for some things here and there, like Nico and Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. Originally in the comic books, Carolina does kiss Nico, but Nico's like, nah, I'm not interested in that, no thanks, but no thanks, right? And here, she's kind of embracing it, right? They're actually in a relationship. That's a bit different here. So I think that's going to be interesting to see as to kind of where things go with that. Little things like that, I think they're kind of taking their own, liberties and stuff and changing it. But very little things like that. Mostly it's so far been comic book accurate from what I can tell. So I think that's really going to be cool to see as to where things kind of go with that relationship between Carolina and Jonah, and what, who's more powerful. If he's dying, is she dying? And is, his whole hand getting skinny and scaly. Is Carolina going to be like that? And if so, how long is it going to take? How old is Jonah? Could he be 100,000 years old, 1,000,000 years old? And could Carolina just be, I think the actress is 23 years old, 24 years old, something like that. Let's say she's probably playing a 15, 16 years old. Let's say she's playing someone anywhere from, let's say 15 to 18 or something like that, around that age. I'm not entirely sure as to what age she's kind of being portrayed as in this show just yet. and I'll try and put it on the screen, I think. But I think it's going to be interesting to see is the kind of if she is way older than her, and she has kind of she has her youth over him. I think that could be something, a bit of an edge over him. He's kind of getting old and dying and stuff, where she might be, in her peak, right? So she's more physically capable or more powerful for that reason. I think that could be something interesting to play with that. Or they could do the other way around and just he's more wise, more skilled, knows how to use his powers more, so he's more powerful because he knows what he's doing, right? And she has no idea what she's doing. She has a very little idea. She's just starting to, be able to fly on command. That's all she can do in this episode. So I think that's interesting there. So we see that Catherine Wilder ends up killing Darius, and just after he kind of showed up at the hotel and he had texted his baby mama and stuff. And I think that was kind of interesting. Like, and that's the first thing he thought when she points the gun at him, is you can see that on his face, like, oh damn, she's gonna come back and find me. Either one, Catherine's gonna call the police and stuff, and that's the best situation, which is actually what she did. Or two, his baby mama is going to be the one to find his body because that's who he just texted to show up, right? And I think that was just kind of a great moment there, just seeing that, and that relationship is going to be quite interesting to see where things go with that, and how things, how is the relationship going to affect between Catherine and Joffrey once he finds out what she did. He's going to find out, obviously. He's going to put two and two together. I think that's really going to be interesting. And she's not going to, I don't think she's going to hide it from him or anything like that. But I think that'll be quite cool to see as to where things go. Obviously, he has to know by now because it was already on the news, right? On the radio. So that'll be cool to see that. So then we end the episode with Molly. She goes back out to do some superheroing and stuff. And all she's wearing is this little thing over her type thing. And I think that's kind of... this little mask, but she needs to get a little bit of a better mask or something like that. But she obviously has no idea what she's doing, so it's okay. But she goes to stop, and she ends up stopping the same pimp again, and she kind of lifts and flips the car, pretty cool, and that was really great. But then she's actually followed, and we find out she was followed by Topher. Now, the way they ended the episode, they stop. He's like, "Oh, hi, I'm Topher," and earlier on in the episode, actually beginning of the episode, when she first stopped the pimp and stuff from beating up the girl and stuff, or trying to push her in the car, and they both look. The girl, she had kind of turned and said, "Wow, she has the same eyes as him," and type thing. And then we see at the end it's Topher, and then when they end, "Oh, hi, I'm Topher." And then we end, roll credits, right, and stuff. So I think that was really interesting playing with that. I kind of was like, oh, clearly they're teasing someone as Topher, and I had no idea who Topher was whatsoever. Checked it out on YouTube. There is one video announcing that someone has been cast as Topher. The rest are spoilers, I guess, from the show, but nothing about Topher on YouTube at all. So I looked him up here, and it seems like he is a vampire, from what I can see, who infiltrates the Runaways. Now he ends up, joining the Runaways, and then he ends up turning on them, and as a vampire trying to feed on them. And when he tries to feed on Carolina, her powers kind of end up fatal to him. So I think that could be interesting to see as to where things go with that. Are they going to go with the classic way? And the way they kind of set this up, but it's interesting playing with this, because in any other, medium, you set this up and it's like, oh, who is this, right? And you wait. But setting up the way they set up his name, it's like, here's this character's name. You're obviously going to go Google him. Here you go. So I think that's really going to be interesting to see as to where things go with the kind of, with that, how comic book accurate do they go with him, and I think that's really going to be interesting to see that. And it seems here like everyone ends up believing and trusting him, except for Alex, who always has this thing in the back of his mind, and he kind of doesn't tell the team about his suspicion because he saves it for to use it as a team building exercise, as a way for the team to kind of learn to use their powers together against him. So I think that's really going to be interesting to see if they do take that part of it, especially with the theme in this episode, or Nico in this episode wanting to train everyone, and Alex not being around for that and not being able to do that without Alex because he's the smartest one. And I think that's really going to be interesting to see if he does take that element from the comic books, and I feel like they are, the way they're setting that up, is that they're going to have Alex kind of, he's suspicious of Topher the whole time, never says his opinion to anyone. He might not hide it from everyone, but he might not voice it as much as he would like to, in order to keep it, just keep an eye on him, and kind of, when the time comes, they'll have to turn, and that'll be their, a way to kind of trust them, right? And they, a way for them to kind of a way for them to learn to use their powers, right? And I think that's really going to be interesting to see, is to kind of where things go and how long do they take this. Does Topher stay as part of the team for a while, and does he use his powers and stuff as a vampire? Does he reveal himself right away as a vampire? I think that's going to be quite interesting to see, as to kind of where things go with that. And is he a vampire at this point? We don't really see him use his powers and stuff. I imagine if he has the same powers, and here they kind of hinted at, like what they said with the pimp and stuff, saying that he has the same eyes, or she has the same eyes as him, meaning that, is she related? Are they both vampires? Is that going to be something similar? I imagine he'd have different. He should have different colored eyes, because they're not exactly the same. Whereas Molly's a mutant. They haven't quite said that yet, but she's a mutant and stuff. But and then that's going to be interesting to see if at the end of this episode, are they able to kind of end of the season, and he able to reference her as a mutant, because Marvel now owns Fox, or 98% pretty much owns Fox. They don't have the go ahead to start developing any Marvel any X-Men movies just yet, but maybe is it early enough that they could use the word mutant in this, and it's so close to being done that no one's really gonna bat an eye that they use the word mutant in a TV show like this just once, right? I don't know if they'd be able to slip through the cracks at this point in the game. So I think that could be cool, seeing that in the episode. So I think that's going to be quite interesting to see as to where things go with this. Now, do they get Topher involved, with this whole Pride thing? Whenever they all go out to fight Pride, he doesn't have any stakes in that game, because his parents are not there, right? So I think that's going to be interesting to see, is does he help them with Pride? Do they want him to help with Pride? Do they want to bring him into this whole setup, this whole thing with Pride and all that stuff? And what is that relationship going to be? I think that's really going to be fun to see, as to where things go with that. And I think if he doesn't show off his powers, and he just, hey, I'm just some random guy who needs help, random human who has no powers, no nothing, then it's like, okay, well, we're going to go fight Pride now. You got to stay here, because it's going to be too dangerous, right? So I think that's really going to be interesting to see, is how they play with that. Or does he straight up just say, hey, I got this, when Old Lace comes around and is like, oh, wow, you got a dinosaur? Well, then, I got to tell you that I'm a vampire, right? There's my thing, right? You got a dinosaur? This is my thing. I think it could be pretty interesting to deal with that, to see as to kind of how things go with him. And I think that's really going to be quite interesting to see as to where things continue on with this. The comic books. And if I'm not mistaken, here in the comic books, at least on the Marvel Wiki, it says that he was really rich, and he got a lot of money, made some great investments, because he was born in 1990, so he'd be over 100 years old at this point. And during the 1940s, he was transformed into a vampire, and he made a great fortune. And then in 1979, he bit a mutant. He drank the blood of a mutant and spent the next several decades in an adolescent's effluence. So he's stuck in adolescent form after biting a mutant. I think that could be interesting if they deal with that. Are they going to call it a mutant at this point? I don't know. If they call him a mutant, that could be interesting. To know whether or not they got the okay to do this. I don't know if when they filmed this and when they did this, do they know when they were going to release it, and versus how far off the Disney Fox deal would be, and if it would be. I think at this point, I feel like it could. If they said mutants, I don't think anyone would really kind of bat an eye at it. It would slip through the cracks and all that stuff, legally speaking. But I don't know if at the time when they filmed it, they could predict where that would be and count on it. Marvel the Disney Fox deal being so close to to being finished as it is right now. So I don't know if they're going to reference him as a mutant, or that he bit a mutant, or they just say, oh, I bit someone special, within, dealing with that, and then kind of, hint at that he bit a mutant, right? So I think that's really going to be interesting to see as to where things go with that. And they also hint that he has, at least in the comic books, they talk about here that he was really rich, had a lot of money, and then in 2001 he lost all of his fortune to the .com bubble, economic crisis and stuff. And I think that is going to be interesting to see is if they do that. It seems like he's not rich. Obviously, he wouldn't be hanging out with the homeless people and all that stuff like he mentions at the end of this episode. But we'll have to wait and see as to kind of where things go with him. Regarding that, is he actually homeless? Is he just pretending? Does he have money or not? I think that could be something to play with. It doesn't seem like it based on, it's like, oh, this is beats homeless shelters all day long, right? So I think that probably confirms that he doesn't have any money anymore. So that's going to be interesting to kind of play with all that to see just to where things go with Topher. So let me know what you think, guys, about this in the comments below. If you know anything else about the characters, let me know. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.
I'm Captain America, here to talk to you about one of the most valuable traits a soldier or student can have.
Subscribing.
Sometimes subscribing is the key to victory. Sometimes it leads to very little, and it seems like it's not worth it. And you wonder why you waited so long for something so disappointing. How many more of these?
You're still here.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, guys. Peace.
It's over.